topic from my side is about PPC. Why? Because I think PPC is one of the things that, especially in Q1, can be super, super impactful, especially after the learnings that we're going to get out of what is left of Q4. And more importantly, it's going to make sure that we create the momentum that we need to scale into 2026. So let me give you a brief introduction about myself so you know who I am. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy. We're one of the hosts of today's webinar. And essentially, our goal as a full service agency is to really support brand scale globally when it comes to Amazon. We've been in the space for over 7 years. We have worked with over 1,000 brands with a team of over 85 people in-house, and we do everything: PPC, listing optimization, DSP, brand creative, everything that you need to essentially succeed on Amazon. And we have a portfolio over $300 million and over $50 million in ad spend. So we have a lot of understanding what works, what doesn't work. And a lot of the things we're going to be sharing today is essentially from trial and error with some of our top brands, and that we're seeing now consistently being essentially the difference between what is making the brand succeed and essentially convey that momentum into what is left of Q4 and into 2026. I also invite everybody to check my podcast called the eCommerce Lab Podcast, where I have some of the brightest minds in the industry, some of them panelists here as well. So if you want to learn all about Amazon and e-commerce in general, I invite you, and you're going to see that you're always going to be learning the latest tools, the latest strategies, and make sure you can stay ahead of the competition. Now, let's dive into the topic. So when it comes to Q1, right, the most important thing is understanding that Q1 is all about riding the wave of what you do in Q4. And I'm going to be sharing with you what are some of the mistakes you have to avoid, what are some of the things you have to take in consideration, and how you can make the most of every single dollar amount that you invest into PPC. Now, why does the Q4 momentum is very important when it comes to Q1 PPC, right? The most important thing is the sell velocity you're going to get, right? Something that's going to happen right now in Q4 is that you're going to get a lot of sales that are going to be happening throughout PPC. And that's very insightful for you, because now essentially what you can do is you can gain all the data, which are the keywords that work, which are the keywords that don't work, but more importantly, the keywords that consistently convert for you and are profitable. Why this is important? Because this essentially plays into effect the flywheel effect of Amazon that converts into organic ranking. And we know organic ranking is the only way for you to be profitable, especially in Q1, where we know the intentions over purchase is the lowest. You want to make sure you have as much visibility as possible. And more importantly as well, like with everything that you do in Q4, if you do Q4 correctly, you need to use those earnings to then invest efficiently to make sure that you create a strong foundation into the remainder of the year. Now, when it comes to Q1, right, something that is very, very important to take into consideration is essentially data. That's why Q4 for me is the best season, because not only it's about sales. I mean, of course, everybody wants to make money, but it's also about data. You essentially are able to do into a span of 3 months, what most likely for a lot of you are not able to collect into a span of 6 to 10 months. Why? Because there's so much engagement going on across Amazon, because people is looking to spend money, people is looking to engage with pro details pages more and advertising, that you're able to validate strategies faster than ever. And essentially from there, you are able to essentially gain the behavior, which we're going to be talking more about how the behavior now converts into performance. But more importantly, you're going to have the validation why you need to make sure in seasons such as Q1 that we know PPC tends to convert much lower, and it's a season that you don't want to be experimenting. You want to go very safely into what is being consistently driving sales and profitability for you. Now, when it comes to the first strategy I want to bring to the table is essentially Amazon Marketing Cloud. So this is something I'm being super, super vocal when it comes to Amazon. I mean, this is something that I talk always in podcasts, when I go to events, when I meet clients. And the reason is very simple. Like, I'm a huge, huge believer that this is where Amazon is heading. I mean, when it comes to things such as Rufus, everything's about Rufus. You go on LinkedIn, everybody's talking about Rufus. You go into the numbers that Amazon has been releasing, everything's about Rufus. Everything that Amazon is releasing is headed into behavior. Why that's the case? Because Amazon wants to make sure that they can know exactly how you're going to behave from the moment you open your app or your web browser to the moment of checkout. And that's something that only with audiences we're going to be able to achieve. And they're essentially giving you that with Amazon Marketing Cloud, so you can repurpose that within advertising. That's why what you need to do in Q4, try to gather as much data as possible, which the good news, by the way, Amazon Marketing Cloud is not something that you have to activate right now to start gathering data. In fact, they just extended the period you can go back in time up to 25 months. So that means even if you activate this in during Q1, which I wouldn't advise because you want to make sure you're ready for Q1, you still can go back in time and see what happened in Q4. Now, what is the idea behind Amazon Marketing Cloud? We want to know exactly who is your consumer, who is the one that essentially is going to convert the best when it comes to your ads, and how do I make sure that I consistently tap with my advertising throughout the journey where I know my consumer is more likely to convert into a sale. So essentially, what we're going to be doing for Q1 is we're going to be creating audiences. We're going to focus only on people that, for example, have spent the most amount of money with us. They have consistently engaged with pro details pages, or more importantly, competitors that are essentially being engaging with some of these avatar, in this case, consumers, but we see from a conversion point of view is not as engaging as it should. And we know they're in a weak point throughout the customer path journey that we can convey them into buying from us. And then from there, the rest is history. What you're going to do with these audiences, you're going to put them within your PPC, and you're just going to spend money effectively on people that behave exactly as you want them to behave. This comes down to many things that is specific to brands. It comes down to a demographic you want to focus on a specific engagement. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but now essentially rather than focusing on Q1 on generic strategies and doing what everybody's doing, you're actually going to focus on behavior. That's really what is going to make sure you become as profitable as possible. Now, when it comes to the type of strategies and which ones you have to prioritize, of course, these are the main three types. We also have sponsored TV and we also have DSP, but those ones for most of you are not going to be applicable. The one that are really going to be the most impactful are going to be the ones that you see in the screen: sponsor products, sponsor brands, sponsor display. Now, for most of you, where you really can get the best return on investment is going to be sponsor product. There's no question about that. However, I always see that a lot of brands are not implementing sponsor brands and sponsor display. And I'm going to be showing you how, if you have a very healthy mix among these three, you can actually tap into your competitors, but also into your consumers very efficiently and have a 360 coverage, not only from essentially engaging with clients that could buy from you, but also defending yourself. A lot of people don't talk about defense. Q1 is one of the periods you have to defend yourself the most because everybody's desperate, specifically your competition, and they're going to tag your brand returns, they're going to tag your pro details pages, they're going to retarget everybody that engages with your pro details pages. And you need to be very, very smart about how you make sure this is not exploited. Now, let's talk about what is some of the structure I recommend everybody to keep in place. So a big mistake I see every single time I audit accounts is the ratio between manual campaigns and automatic campaigns. Don't get me wrong, automatic campaigns should definitely be part of your strategy, but if it's more than 30%, you're doing something wrong. Last week, actually, I remember I was doing an audit, and this brand essentially they spent close to $1 million per month on PPC, so very big brand. And then when I go into the advertising spend, like we're talking that over 60% of the spend, almost 70%, were in auto campaigns. Now, the performance wasn't horrible, but the thing is, when I went inside those auto campaigns, most of the sales were at a certain point because the account had a lot of history coming always from the same term, the same keyword, the same ASIN. And I was asking, like, why at this point you're not isolating this term into its own campaign? You clearly have used automatic campaigns efficiently to validate what works and what doesn't work, but that's not where you stop the strategy. That's actually the beginning or where you go next in terms of focus. And that's why manual campaign should be the main focus. This is specifically, especially if you're looking for ranking, for example, exact match is your best friend when it comes to that. And if you want to go an extra layer, is playing with placements like top of search, pro details pages, rest of search. But again, you need to make sure this mix is close to these numbers. If not, I'm telling you, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. But more importantly, you're leaving your fate to Amazon, which we know we essentially most of the time is not going to play to your favor. Now, how do we take this to our advantage in terms of moving into the mix, right? The first thing you have to understand, automatic campaigns, if that's you and you're in Q4, you have a lot of auto campaigns, you need to use the keywords. You need to harvest what is being converting, and you need to start migrating this into manual campaigns. Because when in Q1 kicks in and the intention to our purchase is the lowest, automatic campaign, what is going to happen is because the terms that don't end up converting as they usually do, is going to start experimenting with other terms, and you're going to bleed a lot of money with your automatic campaign. So Q1 is the period where you go safe, you play on what works, and you remove anything that is either too broad or experimental. The other thing you also had to make sure is you adjust your bids. Why? Because if you have by the end of Q4 10 keywords that are the ones that bring the 80% of your revenue, I'm a huge believer of the 80-20 rule. You want to make sure you put most of your money there. So once you have those 10 keywords, focus exact match with high bids on those keywords, because why you're gonna try to risk your money to get the other 20-30% of the market, which we don't even know if it's gonna be profitable. You haven't invalidated those keywords. Focus on what is working, and essentially from there you're gonna start building the snowball effect that you need to maximize revenue, but also stabilize your ACOS into the remainder of Q1. Now, something that is also very, very important in terms of prioritizing this budget allocation is also understanding that when it comes to the CPCs, usually CPCs tend to have also a significant boost during Q1, right? And this is something that you really, really need to take in consideration, because given that the purchase the intention toward purchase is the lowest, people is gonna click even higher than usual, and that's usually not gonna be driven to sales, which is gonna drop your conversion, and it's gonna spike CPC because most people is gonna try to compete for the same keyword. So because of that, going back to the foundation I just explained the first slide, focusing on top 5 to 10 keyword. Make sure as well that you only focus on bottom of the funnel. Q1 is not the time to experiment aggressively with sponsor brand, sponsor display, phrase broad, or auto if you haven't done in the past. And that is going to essentially consolidate your profit to then into Q2, Q3. That's where I would recommend these other campaigns to kick in. Now, how we essentially going to make sure that everything that's happening in Q4 is also consolidating your presence in Q1. As I mentioned, it's all about the flywheel effect. That's really what we're trying to maximize here. And that comes down to organic ranking. You want to make sure what is left of Q4, which is pretty much a month now. You really want to make sure that most of your sales are coming through the terms that are essentially the ones that you have to be organically. Because if you do that efficiently, especially more efficiently than your competition, in Q1, that history that you have attributed throughout the remainder of Q4 is going to make sure that you consolidate your presence organically among your main keywords. And then when Q1 kicks in, PPC performs lower than usual because I explained conversion is lower, CPC is high, and all of that. Your organic ranking is going to make sure that you're right away, that you consistently keep making sales while your competition essentially is drowning on PPC and trying everything under the sun because they haven't done the homework like you. They don't have the data, they don't have the keywords, they don't have the audience, but more importantly, they don't have the organic ranking, which you're going to have. Now, all this at the end of the day is going to go through the window if you don't optimize for listings. And I'm sure my colleague Kamal is going to elaborate more on that. Like at the end of the day, everything you're going to be doing with PPC and everything I'm showing right now in terms of foundation is going to be worthless if you don't make sure that everything you learn out of PPC, especially for the remainder of Q4, is not put as a learning into everything you do with your listings into Q1. Why? Because as you discover keywords, as you validate keywords in terms of conversion, and you really identify the gaps across all your keywords and essentially what is working and what is not, most likely that's going to drive you to optimize your title, optimize your bullet points, your description, your images, more importantly, because most likely you're going to identify that certain keywords convert better than others, but those keywords are not necessarily being properly addressed on your copy and your images. So you need to make sure that Q4, towards the end of Q4, you take this action, because if you don't, and then all the momentum you create in Q4 is done successfully with PPC, is not going to be carried over with a good foundation on the listing, which means you're not going to keep the indexation, you're not going to keep the ranking, but more importantly, you're not going to be the attribution with Rufus, which is really where 2026 is heading into. So make sure that's a big part of your strategy. And I would say the final thing in terms of really summarizing how I will do this in terms of deploying the whole strategy. So the first one is what we've been focusing throughout the whole presentation, which is increasing the budget on the high performing keywords, implement Amazon Marketing Cloud, try to avoid any kind of experimentation with broad phrase, automatic campaigns and things like that. Once that is stable, my next phase is start bringing into the mix, as I mentioned, towards mid Q1 video ad campaigns. Those are the ones that are working the best for us, not only for sponsored brands. I'm sure you guys have seen now sponsored product video campaigns. We're experimenting with some of them, and we start to see some interesting KPIs. It's very early, it's been 2 weeks only, but that's something we also keep in mind. And once you fully maximize video, which again, with the AI guys, there's no excuse now. Like I'm telling you, there's so much gap in the market of video campaigns because most videos are very bad. They're really not convey that triggering kind of click and then purchase. You can really knock out of the park if you get the most out of this. Is then transition into display, sponsor display. This is really where not only you're gonna be able to attack your competition or engage with your essential consumers that they haven't purchased for you, especially from Q4. That's why sponsor display brackets DSP, if you also do DSP, performs very well on Q1 because it's all about all the people that didn't engage with you in Q4. But you have a lot of data people didn't engage, like you have surplus of traffic that didn't convert in sell, but that's data that you can re-engage in Q1 and maybe they might buy you now. So that's why sponsor display or DSP in Q1, if you implement it efficiently, can also give you a significant lift into Q1 and the remainder of the year. So I would say these are some of the tips I will give you into consideration. Like the most important thing is also having some budget kind of allocation here. This is another thing that a lot of people get wrong. Whatever they do in Q4, they try to copy paste it into Q1. Budget has to distributed again. Why? Because CPC changes, sales velocity will change. Most likely your economics might get impacted if you're having a new deal agreement with your supplier, but usually happens towards the end of the year. So make sure your budget is taken into consideration. Also define your KPIs based on that and use those KPIs to then essentially combining that with Amazon Marketing Cloud and all the kind of rules you're going to put in your PPC to make sure that that's your North Star into everything that you do in PPC moving forward into the remainder of 2026. And this is essentially a summary, guys. This is a playbook. Like the first one, using your data for Q1, use the foundation to Q1, Q4 from Q1 as a fuel, implementation Amazon Marketing Cloud, have a healthy mix into auto and manual, make sure you have a proper alignment into your PPC and listings to make sure you can stick the performance you've essentially been getting in Q4. And more importantly, once you have that strong foundation, start scaling. Scaling means launching new campaigns, like I mentioned, video campaigns, sponsor display campaigns, DSP, some of you, if you have the budget to do so. And that's going to make sure that you can have a successful journey into the remainder of the year. So that's everything from me, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to be leaving a QR code, as you can see in the screen, where we can have a meeting with myself and my team. More than happy to have a conversation about how we can make everything that you saw on the screen happen for your brand and scale it forward. But it's been a pleasure. Now, if there is any questions, but this is very important, I keep mentioning because as I really want you to get the most out of this, make sure, like, if there's anything that I mentioned here that maybe it's too technical or it wasn't really clicking with you, you put it down below. And towards the end of all the presentation, we're gonna make sure we can go in depth with that. Okay, awesome. So now we have next speaker in line. So we have Joy Pack. So Joy, the floor is yours.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Vincenzo and Ecomcy for hosting this great webinar. But it's crazy that we're already only 1 month away from the new year. But just during my talk, I'm just going to dive more into like review strategies and ensure that you're well prepared for Q1. And especially as Vincenzo mentioned, there will be a heavy focus on Amazon Rufus and why reviews are actually going to play a key part in that as well. But one stat that I always like to start off by sharing is that Amazon states that only 1 to 2% of your customers will actually leave a review. That means you need to actually have 100 orders in order to result in 1 review. So getting reviews is tough, and we're seeing that as a common challenge, not just for new sellers, but also experienced sellers as well. But one thing I always like to say is, before even thinking about the new year and your review strategies, one thing that we always recommend is just doing an audit of the reviews that you received in 2025. You really want to understand what your customers actually want and not what you think they want. This is probably a challenge that I see with a lot of sellers. They're so passionate about their brand and products that how they think about their products, their customers might not essentially always think about it the same way. Now, even when you are doing kind of an audit of your reviews, I really recommend to take the time, and it might be some manual effort on your part, but you can try to identify, for example, any common complaints that they might have, specific features that customers are repeatedly mentioning, any common issues. And this will really prepare you for Q1 because what you can do now is adjust any copy or messaging on your product listings, update any necessary product photos, rewrite any bullet points to make sure that it kind of matches the languages that your customers are already using, right? And it really, at the end of the day, it's going to help with your conversion. Let's say if you're an apparel brand and if your customers are confused about, let's say, sizing, maybe you want to add comparison charts in your images, in your product images. If maybe customers love like a specific feature, again, maybe you want to highlight that in your images or in your product description. But I would say this preparation is extremely important as we head into the new year because, like Vincenzo mentioned, the launch of Amazon's AI Rufus, it is still in beta, but it was heavily rolled out, I would say, especially in 2025. And just to provide a bit more background information, Rufus is Amazon's AI shopping assistant that basically helps customers make any informed purchasing decisions through any sort of like conversational interactions, right? So instead of, even as a shopper myself, instead of having to, for example, scroll through hundreds of individual reviews, customers can actually directly um, ask questions or specific prompts. So for example, I can say, I'm looking for a pair of hiking shoes, winter hiking shoes. Can you give me some recommendations? Or can you show me only products with a star rating of over 4 stars? Or, we can even dive even more specific. So I can say, what do customers say about the durability of these hiking shoes, for example, right? Um, so that's kind of their shopping assistant, and it's very similar. I have a feeling a lot of us may have used ChatGPT before, but it's basically scraping any available data, right? That means Rufus is going to be reading and interpreting reviews that customers have written for you. It's going to be reviewing and scraping any of the copy that's in your product listings. It's going to decide which strengths and weaknesses to highlight for your product, but it also compares your products to other competitors, right? Review using any of the available data and review language. But with, you know, Rufus analyzing any of this review content, really what matters more now is like the quality and authenticity of the reviews, rather than, for example, just the sheer volume of reviews that your products have. And again, AI is able to identify any of these specific patterns in the feedback that the customers are writing for you, because they want to make sure that they're also providing real value to potential buyers, right? So again, as Vincenzo mentioned in his talk, you need to collect that data. And again, that data can come in many different forms, but reviews is one of them. And again, sometimes, the valuable customer reviews that they're writing for you can be buried in lengthy reviews that shoppers don't necessarily read completely. But Rufus is able to bring these insights directly to customers. So you want to make sure that the products with rich, detailed review feedback is going to also help in answering any specific customer questions and scenarios. And I would say what this means for your review strategy is you really do want to encourage customers to write any sort of like detailed, authentic reviews. And you want to make sure that these are coming, of course, from genuine, verified customers. You also want to be able to address any like negative feedback promptly and publicly when appropriate. But you want to ensure that also your product descriptions and listings really represent any of your product strengths, key features, and benefits. Like I mentioned before, let's say I have a brand that sells hiking shoes. I might be, dead set and passionate on my hiking shoes being the most durable and maybe one of the key highlights it being that it's lined with wool, for example, right? But on the other hand, you might notice that a lot of the feedback that your customers are writing for you might not incorporate any of that at all. They might be talking about, for example, other specific key features, such as how it's waterproof, or maybe that it's waterproof, or it's just extremely durable, or it fits perfectly. So you want to make sure that you're actively reviewing what your customers are writing for you and make sure that you're able to update any of the specific product information and listings as much as possible. So like I said, watch out for those, like any patterns, because again, Rufus is going to be scraping that data and going to be make sure that they're highlighting the correct data to the customers as well. But again, at the end of the day, reviews are really one of the most powerful, I would say, growth levers that a lot of Amazon sellers have. They not only influence your search rankings, but they shape your conversion rates. And again, with Amazon Rufus, they really do determine how your product is going to be summarized and compared to competitors. But again, it's not just, you know, from a sales perspective, it's not just going to help with sales, but it's social proof, right? It's really that strategic asset that I would say is essential for any brand to build that kind of long-term sustainable growth strategy that's not just impacting revenue, but also like your long-term brand health. So I would say these are just very general tips that I mentioned, but if you are interested in learning more, please feel free to, visit us at getreviews.ai, or if you have any questions, please feel free to also email us, and we'd be happy to kind of discuss anything regarding reviews, or how you can collect more reviews, I would say, for the next year. Mhm.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. And for everybody, if any questions for Joy, please feel free to drop it below and then we can answer towards the end. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome. So next in line, we have Kamal. How you doing, Kamal?
Hey guys, super excited to be here once again, and excited to talk about CTR and CVR, and especially how you can generate images with AI these days. So there's a nano banana, there's a big hype going on. So I'm just going to show you a really, really easy way how you can generate that. But before we do that, I'm going to share some of the advanced strategies that we have been using, that you can leverage using AI to generate something similar. Vincenzo, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. So for those who don't know about me, my name is Kamal. In the last 7 years, I've scaled more than 2,000 listings, to seven figures. And I'm the founder and CEO of AMZ ONE STEP. I'm partner at Kenji ROI, a company that we acquired a few years ago. And we have generated more than 200,000 images, in the past. I'm not talking about white background images. I'm talking about actually CTR and CVR driven images. I'm also a member of Agency Forbes Council. I've spoken at many international Amazon conferences, 8 years of Amazon experience. And the reason I'm telling you all this is not to brag, but just to show that everything that I'm going to share with you is coming from the real experiments and real data. So let's start with the customer avatar or market intelligence. I have worked with like thousands of Amazon brands, but anytime any brand comes to me, none of them have their customer avatar ready. And what customer avatar actually looks like, it talks about your customer pain points, key motivation factors, what are the decision-making factors, who exactly is buying the product, right? So everything, most of the Amazon listings, they're super generic. In reality, your listings, they should be targeting, a specific customer avatar, right? So for example, take a look at this, all these images. There was a client of mine, he was selling, plastic cups, with the lids. So I looked at first listing, second listing. I looked at the entire search page. And when I looked at all those images, none of the competitors, they were actually speaking with the targeted audience. All of the listings, they were generic. How many times you have seen BPA free, FDA approved, waterproof, ergonomic design, durable, like bunch of those generic terms which are true for all other competitors. But when I actually built the customer avatar, the reason why people were buying those buying those plastic cups with lids is because they had a financial pressure. They did not want to spend $5 to $7 every single day at the coffee shops, right? They did not want to wait at a drive-through every single morning, 15 minutes. They wanted something quick, which is stylish. You know, this is exactly what people were talking about in the reviews, but none of the competitors, they were having that in their images. So having a customer avatar or market intelligence ready from the real reviews is really, really important. Take a look at this example. This is a GPS tracker. This is a vehicle GPS tracker. And the brand owner thought they were selling to the fleet management. This was their main ICP. But in reality, when we dug down into the reviews, analyzed over 40,000 reviews, we found out that it's parents for the teen drivers who are actually buying those products. When we changed the images, targeting the parents for teen drivers, the conversion went, through the roof. And what customer avatar or market intelligence does, it gives you the top pain points and also the key motivations. Why exactly are they buying that product? Which also helps you with the image tag. What should be your image number 2? What should be your image number 3, 4, 5, depending on the pain points and their importance. Here's another example. It's a cooling gel, cushion, one of the top brands on Amazon. And when we analyze those reviews, we found that there's not only one avatar, there could be multiple avatars for the same product. And I was speaking with Kevin King, and he mentioned, Kamal, you know what smart sellers are doing? They are creating different listings for each avatar instead of just having one listing which is targeting every single avatar, because the ability for different avatars to pay is more. For example, someone buying that for medical needs, they can pay up to $80. But if somebody's buying the cushion, cooling gel cushion for travel purposes, a 12 hours long flight coming up, they might be only willing to spend $20 to $40. Right? So every feature of your product is not equally important to the different avatars. For example, Lisa, maybe the cooling gel layer is at a low priority, but for office worker and for the larger build person, it's really, really important, as opposed to somebody who's looking for a medical needs. The professional appearance is not that important, but for the office worker, it is super important. So it's really important for you to build out these customer avatars and market intelligence. So here's a very easy way of doing it, okay? So there's a tool, listingoptimization.ai. Very easy, listingoptimization.ai. You go there, you put in your ASIN. If your listing is live, if your listing is not live, put in your keyword. It's going to generate a really detailed market intelligence for you. Exactly what I showed you. And once that market intelligence is built, now you're ready to build, CTR and CVR optimized images, because the entire data is there. So once you do that, you can generate the brief as well. So now let's talk about the CTR for a moment. There are multiple factors which are responsible for click-through rate and conversion rate. But the main image is the number one most important factor, which can decide whether you're going to have a high click-through rate or a low click-through rate. Because reviews, you don't control that. Badges, you don't control that. The price is decided by the market, right? So the only thing that you control is the product title and the main image, but the product title kind of gets cut in half, mainly on the mobile view, and it's also mainly for the keyword purposes. It's not for, the main image is the only thing where you fully control the click-through rate, okay? So you need to understand the risk versus reward thing. So always start with 3 different images. One image is like perfectly Amazon compliant, which is something that you see on the left, and something on the right, which is a little bit risky. Okay, so you always want to push for the risky image first. If it gets approved, good. If not, you always have a fallback option, which is the safer image. And a lot of you might be thinking, hey, Kamal, this is not Amazon compliant, but guess what? The top Amazon brands, they're using the exact same strategy on Amazon. If you're playing safe, or if you want to play with the rules of Amazon, this is what is going to happen. I want you to focus at the loser, not at the winner. Look at the losing image. It only got 1 vote, and that is the only perfectly Amazon compliant image. All others, they are in the gray area or risky area. So you decide whether you want to stay safe or you want to get the advantage. Okay, so a lot of time, many Amazon sellers, they ask me, Kamal, my product is very particular. My product, I cannot use this strategy. Kamal, I have tested many angles already. I don't know what to do. So what I did, I took Apple as an example. I used AI to create different types of main images which could potentially be possible, and a lot more. So these are, I don't know, like, 28, 30 images. So every single image, depending on your SERP, you can use these strategies to make your product stand out. It's the exact same product. Some of them, maybe, for example, if you have a two color options or two pack, maybe this works better. If you have, maybe color variations, you can maybe this one works better. But everything else, like same product, you can have product packaging, you can have a hang tag, you can have a removable sticker, you can have a liquid splash in the background, you can add a ribbon, or you can, you can play around with the props. Same product. If you think you have tested enough, that's not true. And I'm going to share you a very interesting tool, which is same the listing optimization AI that I shared with you. If you use that, it's free. You can generate 50 images per month for free. And all of these strategies and templates that are built into that. And these are like the winning templates. I want to share another really good SOP that I use at AMZ One Step. So most Amazon sellers, they start with just one image because they only think that image can be done in a one way. But here's the proof that you can do the images in many different ways. So what you want to do, you want to create a collage of different images, whatever comes to your mind. Okay, whatever your top competitors are doing, what you think would be best, what your agency thinks would be the best, what your freelancer thinks is the best, create everything and put it in a collage mode and see what stands out. You pick the best elements and then you create a final version. Once you have that final version ready, then you test out different callouts. Okay, and these callouts, they can go on Product Pinion or PickFu and see, test them out, see which one wins. The winner goes to the manager experiment. You test your existing image with your winning from PickFu or Product Pinion. Take that image, run a managed experiment, and you will have really, really good results. That is the SOP. But in some cases, your experiment may fail. And what happens when your experiment fails? You isolate the problem. Most Amazon sellers, they make 20 different changes, they run experiment. When it fails, they think, oh, it's not for me. But in reality, you need to isolate the problem, like why exactly the test failed. For example, you can go, the first change you made was the bottle shape. Okay, so you test that. Maybe you changed the label, you test that separately. You added a hang tag, you test that separately. And maybe you added a powder, and you keep going on, and you exactly pinpoint why your experiment is failing. This is not a one-time task. It's a process. It can take 3 to 4 months to do that. But if you do it correctly, your sales will be significant. Your advertising results will be so much better. Your conversion would be so much better. And lastly, I want to leave you with this thing. Once your image is ready, like, once you have like 5 or 6 images ready, always make a SERP, like, mock-up. It's called we call it visual mockup. Basically, you want to create a layout of how your competitors are appearing in the search results. And let's say this is our product. So you want to test different images and see which one stands out more. Take a look at that. So now, for example, this one blends in. This one, okay, so. This one is also okay. So this one stands out. Okay, so this is the dumbbell, but you need to do that. And this is also available in listing optimization.ai, which I will show you in a second. And we did a managed experiment with the one which was standing out, $12,000 extra sales just by changing the main image. Okay, so if you do want to speak with me or someone from my team, you can scan this barcode or go to amzonestep.co. You can book a call with my team. Before I go to the demo, I'm going to show you, it's not going to take too much time, like a couple of more minutes. I'll show you a quick demo, how you can generate images with AI, because it is so fast. So, but if you want to speak with me, here's a scan code. You can scan that. And in the meantime, I will share with you how that tool looks like. And I'll send in the chat. If you lost this QR code, I'll send the link in the chat as well. So what you want to do, if you want the market intelligence or creatives done by AI, you come to Listing Optimization AI. Again, this is free for up to 50 images. What you want to do, you want to choose the ASIN, put your ASIN. For example, I'm going to go with this guy right here. Just copy the ASIN, come here. paste it, choose the marketplace that you are selling in, even any language. Even if you're selling in Europe, this will create images in like European, like French or German or Italian or even Japanese, like every language that I'll show you. So what you do, you click on generate. It takes about 7 to 8 minutes to generate the market intelligence and the images. Okay, so for example, this is what it's going to look like. I'll show you one example. If I click the market intelligence, it will tell you like it analyzed 350 reviews. You will see the top pain points. You will see the top positive themes. You will see the feature requests. You'll see, the customer demographics with the age breakdown. You will see their key motivations. Why exactly what are their decision-making factors before they're buying this product? For example, they're looking for organic certification. They're looking for the reputation of the brand. So these are some of and here's a detailed customer avatar, like who exactly is buying. But the best part is that it's actually coming from the real reviews. It's not making it up. Like AI is reading reviews, analyzing that. You can see like as many reviews as you want. You can see it for your competitors. You can also see it for yours. You can export that. I know your Helium 10 removed this, but now you can also like export reviews if you want. You can see your competitor images all in one page. This is a complete market intelligence. Okay, you see image recommendations, what you should be doing, like all those uh, avatars over here. So a bunch of good stuff here. And once the brief is ready, you click on the brief. This is exactly what you're going to see. Main images, secondary images. So we give you like 3 different main image options. There's like secondary images. You choose how many pictures you want to generate and click on generate button and the images will be ready. So these are all infographics and lifestyle images. I'll show you one more example. Maybe, okay, so let's take a look at the Japanese listing. So all the infographics, everything is in Japanese for the same product, right? You can also generate like really, really good main images. Like all those templates I showed you, they're already within this tool. So you don't even have to think about it. Here's a listing that I did, like from one main image, I got like 30 new main image ideas just by, putting in the ASIN. In 2 minutes, I got like 30 brand new main image ideas. Take a look at this. And the SERP is already made. If you want to see if your main image stands out or not, just click that. You can shuffle the competitors as well to see if it really stands out or blends in. So AI has made things super easy when it comes to creating your when it comes to creating your customer avatars or creating your customer listing images and everything. So here's the link again if you want to book a call with me, or if you want to test the listing optimization.ai, you can test that out. But if there's any question, happy to take those. But that's all from my side. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Kamal. That was awesome. Thank you. And for everybody, if any questions for Kamal, please remember, leave the questions down below and then we can answer them towards the end of the session. So awesome. So next in line, we have Pauline. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, here we go. I want to
Good.
share you guys our perfect purple deck. So, okay, let's start. So I'm from Dolphin, and most probably you never heard about our company. So let me give you a little bit more information what we are doing. We're anti-detect browser, and it's a super specific thing that sometimes e-commerce selling using. And for what reason you need us? So what is basically anti-detect browser? So it's a special browser in which one in each online session you can look like a different person. So for example, if I have one laptop and I'm just, let's say, using Safari, Google Chrome, Opera, for all this browser, I will look like the same person. So let's imagine I'm a middle-aged woman, I'm like a family person, so I'm living in the US. So for each of these browsers, they will see the same data. But if I will use Dolphin or any other anti-detect browser, I can be whatever I want. I can be, let's say, a 50-year-old man who's living in UK. I can be an 18-year-old girl who's living in France. And it's actually why people using us. So, and your next question can be, well, okay, it's a nice story, but why you're telling it for us? So the reason why I'm telling it for you, because we actually recognize that we have a lot of e-commerce sellers that using us for different things. I will read you everything that I'm having on the slide because, well, I think we can send you it after the webinar. But the most popular things why you guys using us, it's if you want to test some niche or you want to do like a separated account in Amazon. For example, I have a bedding shop on Amazon and I want to implement one more and I want to test this niche with a different goods and I don't want to be like one shop and Amazon don't like it. The third thing, it's drop shipping. It's super popular because let's say Amazon is not big fan of it. So you need to have like a different profiles, one from buying Amazon stuff and another for selling. And well, I think the last one is not so relevant, but if so, it's teamwork. So a couple of years ago, it was a big pain. So for example, I'm Amazon seller and I want to sell in US, but my team is sitting in Eastern Europe and every time someone is coming to us and trying to log into our Amazon account, it just get accidentally banned because Amazon had a lot of questions why we are selling on Amazon US, but we are sitting in Poland. So they have a lot of questions so far. So what is, let's say, the biggest risk if we will run it from our competitors? So actually we can use proxy, we can use VPN, we can use something else. Yeah, we can use different laptops. So what's the problem? The problem is that all this type of things actually using the same thing. I mean, if you are using VPN, it's just about changing location. But for Amazon, for Google search, for any type of things, you will be the same person, just in different location. So Amazon will still have a lot of questions for you. With the proxy, it's a little bit better, but the thing is, it's still not a new identity. It's only about, okay, you change, let's say, your hardware or you change the time zone, but you don't change like all together. So my idea why you can just at least try our software or any other detect browser, it's more about fingerprinting. So what is a fingerprinting exactly and how Dolphin Anty can help you about it? So idea is pretty easy. First of all, with Dolphin Anty, you can do it automatically. So we're speaking a lot about AI today. So you can just write, let's say, a specific program inside of Dolphin Anty, something like, okay, I want you to generate for me 10 accounts in Google, and this 10 accounts looks like one in France, one in UK, one I don't know, in Spain, one in US, and I want you to implement the specific time zone, specific audio, and physical fingerprint. So, for example, for this 5 account, I want it to look like the middle-aged woman who is, I don't know, interested in shopping and have some pets and kids. This 5 I want to looks like a little bit different. So when the Dolphin Anty will generate it automatically, you don't need to do nothing, but it will looks like it's 10 different people with a different cookies, different fingerprints. So for Amazon, it will looks like really like 10 different people. That's a good part. What else? Yeah, how we're solving the problem. So the first thing, it's a fingerprint. The second one, it's a specific proxy that's are not, like 30 seconds proxy that will push you to another IP address. It's something like more about residential. So every time when you're someone else using this account, it will looks like the same people from the same location. So we are not changing the IPs. We're doing isolated cookies and session, and we're using a little bit other parameters. I will give you like a lot of test information because I'm not quite sure that it makes sense. If you really want to discuss, let's move it to the question part. So what else? Last but not least, why Amazon thinking that you are trying to scam it? Yeah, because actually algorithm of Amazon looks like they don't want you to have a lot of sellers accounts. They're trying to avoid multi-accounting. Some people having business like doing multi-accounting on Amazon and sell it. So it's something that Amazon want to prevent, and it makes sense for them. I mean, why not? But actually, Dolphin is something that you can use for it. To avoid this type of thing, to look like a different person's. Yeah, and as usual, it looks like for Amazon, if you are using, for example, VPN, it can look like, okay, it's a China store that's trying to go to Canadian profile, yeah, and Amazon like, what is it? It's wrong. I don't like it. I will ban this account. But with anti-tech browser, it can look like you are Canadian. You used to go some Canadian websites, and now you are going to Canadian profile instead of looks like Chinese. So, quick summary. Why I am trying to sell you this nice idea? Because you can avoid bans, you can increase your revenue, you can do the solution better, it can be fully isolated, it can be in any geographic, and it can help you to push your business. Yeah, I think it can be a little bit difficult to understand it all in one. So my suggestion is you can go to our website. We have a free trial and it includes 5 profiles. Of course, it's not like with all features that we have. And if you want something else, you can just message me. You have my WhatsApp, LinkedIn, email. Feel free to reach me out of any of it. Yeah, and so my suggestion, you can try, and then we can discuss because we're always open-minded. If you want to use that for some kind of, let's say, doing more reviews, doing more accounts, and something is not working for you for some reason, you can also message me, and I will give you our tech guy, and then it will be his problem. But yeah, I think that's all from my side. Let's move to other topic, and I will be happy to answer any type of your question if you have one.
Thank you, Pauline. That's great, especially for those looking to expand into different regions and different categories with different accounts, especially in 2026. That was awesome. So thank you for that.
Hope so.
Cool. Thank you. Next in line now, we have Blazej. How you doing?
Yes, I'm here. Just a sec.
Good.
Can you?
Thank you.
Yes. Can you see the screen?
We can see. Yeah, we can see your slides now. Behind you have the calendar. So I don't know if you're gonna put a full screen just in case.
This you see this one? Yeah, the white one. Perfect.
Yeah, we just see a bit of the calendar in the background. I don't know if you may want to do full screen so we can only see the slides.
Just a second. Yeah, now? Or it's still like this?
No, we can see your calendar now.
Your screen sharing.
I think if you want to stop sharing the screen, then when you click sharing
yeah.
the screen again, just select the right tab. Just
that's right. Okay. I'm gonna do like this. Present. Got it. Do you have it now?
Okay. Good. Now. Good.
Awesome. Thanks, Vincenzo, for having us. Really a handful of insights from the previous presentations. My presentation it's not that beautiful, but it's quite fresh. That's why it's still evolving for the upcoming Q1. I'm Blazej, the CEO and the founder of Turbodash. We are e-commerce funding consultants. We help sellers get the right capital with the right terms at the right time. It all started out of our actual need because we are e-commerce owners ourselves, and we were trying to get good funding, and it happened to be a very, very, very painful process with maze of different applications, rates, and hidden fees. So that's why we created Turbodash to help e-commerce owners along the way. So I'm going to talk about today. I'll give you the 6-step system to secure your funding in 2006 without destroying your margins and starting your Q1 broke. Let's maybe start with the question: does 6% equals 33%? Sometimes it does. Here is a story of a founder recently shared on LinkedIn. He was offered what sounded like a great deal. It was 6% flat fee over 4 months with 1% rebate. And this sounds reasonable, right? When you calculate the effective APR with weekly repayments, this equals to the effective APR of 33%. So that's why It's a classical expectations versus reality case, and we need to deep dive into the small things to understand that. So what would be the first step of preparing yourself in terms of funding? The step 0 would be, before anything else, is understanding what expensive actually means for your business. Here is a simple test that I want you to do before you even think about funding. Know your numbers first. So look up your balance sheet and ask yourself, if everything goes wrong, like no growth, just survival mode, could my business absorb an extra 50K to 100K in financing costs? If yes, you know your maximum risk tolerance. If no, you need to be much more conservative with what you take. First and foremost. Then, why does this matter? Because capital is an amplifier of your trajectory, and it's work both ways. If your business is going up, the capital accelerates that. If your business has problems, capital amplifies the current situation. So going further to the step 1, build your own framework. Before you talk to any lender, answer yourself those 4 questions. The first one: how much do you actually need? Not a round number, because we are often say roughly, I need around 300K. This is wrong from the beginning. You need to calculate your exact needs. 2, when do you need it exactly? So not sometime in the Q1. Give yourself a specific date. This number 3 would be, what are the exact purposes mapped to time? So for example, you need 800K for inventory in February and 300K for ads in March. Be very specific. Number 4, what's your story? Lenders look at your numbers, but they also like to understand your business, your plans, your story, and your reasoning behind all this process. So if you can answer those 4 questions, you're clearly more prepared than 80% of the applicants, and lenders notice this fact. Step 2, start early. If you predict you're going to need funding at the end of Q1, start the process now, like not in February, now. This also gives you a huge advantage in terms of the negotiation power that you're going to have. And here's the trick. Tell the lenders your deadline is 1 month before your actual deadline. This is crucial, because everything takes longer than expected. And approvals get delayed, documents get lost, offers change any minute. If you have that buffer, you negotiate from the position of comfort. Step 3, apply widely. Thinking about, we also like this, we always like this analogy of dating. You wouldn't marry someone after first date, right? You want to meet their family, understand their habits, see how they behave, and when the things get difficult. I recommend having minimum 3 to 5 solid, serious offers on the table before you commit. So you need to make additional 5 to 10 applications. So you're going to have 3 out of 15. Sounds quite reasonable that you're actually going to have them. Why so many? Because the best deals can fall apart at the very end. I've seen it happen many, many times. Verbal approvals, everything looks great, then suddenly the terms change or they go silent. If you have backup options, you sleep well. If you don't, you panic and take whatever is available. Going further, step 4, one denominator. One lender gives you a factor rate, another gives you a flat fee, another gives you APR or effective APR, another gives you a cost per cycle. So how do you compare? You need to take everything into one denominator. This table shows the same 300K across 4 different products. So look at the difference. It's around 100K annually on the 300 draw, on the 300 facility. So you need to take everything down to the APR and true annual cost of this particular product. What is also worth to consider before, of course, Taking any of those options is repayment schedules, early repayment penalties, and a lot of those small things that are crucial before making the decision. Going further to step number 5, build your stack. So don't think of funding as one product, think of it as a stack. For example, you can use inventory financing for predictable purchase orders. You know exactly when you need it for when you pay and when you're going to pay it back, low cost and very specific. And you can layer add additional layer of flexible revolving line of credit on top of that for unexpected opportunities or cash flow gaps. So every single tool, I would say financial tool, has its own purpose, and matching the right tool to the right need save you thousands. What's with this screens? I'm sorry, my screens are not working well. Yeah, so going to the end of your funding roadmap, this 6-step system of ours is to summarize it all. Know your risk, so really understand exactly what you can afford to lose before starting. Don't play any blind games. Second, build your framework, define specific numbers, date, purposes, and your story. So this will give you the huge handicap in terms of choosing the right lender in the right time. Start early, begin the process as soon as possible, as soon you can predict that you're going to need the capital. Apply widely, get 3 to 5 offers minimum, treat it like dating, check everything, double check all the crucial details because they change during the application processes as well. Take everything into one denominator and build your stack layer by layer according to your actual needs. You can do it by yourself, but we can also help you do that. You can scan this code over here and book a meeting with me, or you can visit our website. We'll be always happy to help you. Don't take the wrong capital to avoid load sharks and to make this process as smooth as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Blazej. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh.
That's actually super important, especially entering into Q1 for those who wanted to, buy inventory and all of that. Finance is such an important thing. So definitely it was such an important few tips there. So thank you for sharing those. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. Awesome. So next one we have Robert. How you doing, Robert?
Okay. Let's see. Let's share. All right. We are in the home stretch here. You see here. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes, you may want to do a full screen just in case.
Yep, there we go. Okay. All right, how's that look?
Good.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to close us out today, and thanks, Vincenzo, for having us as a panelist here. Nice to see all the good information, all the different viewpoints on kind of the different transitions between Q4 and Q1. What I want to talk about today is how you can use KPI benchmarks to kind of surface SKUs or ASINs that will drive or drain profit. And hold on here. There we go. As I mentioned earlier, I'm COO of Ecom Engine. We've been around for 15 plus years, a lot of it in review management, but we also are in the inventory management space and also the profit analytics. And so one of the things that we're focusing on recently is how to think about your Amazon business as a profit engine, right? A lot of it's about profit, right? People get all thought about in terms of revenue, which is important, right? Because you can't get profit without revenue, but really, how do you understand your profit? So in Q1, right, it's a great reset. Q4, you got a lot of chaos going on, right? There's Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's the big peak of the year. like, and even in people in your life, right? New Year's Eve resolutions, everything kind of that transition's a nice, easy transition. Um, but one of the things to think about is your performance benchmarks are different in Q4, right? They're usually higher. They're not your normal benchmarks. And so this transition into Q1 allows you to kind of reset. It's an ideal timing to kind of go, all right, let me relook at my numbers, let me reestablish performance. And are there any habits I want to start going into the year? Very much like a New Year's resolution. Um, and so it really does give you a nice, clean baseline for being able to do that. So one thing I think a lot of times as we look about how you run your business is benchmarks tell you exactly where to focus, right? And I think a lot of times um, you need to think about not just numbers, right? A lot of people have analytics and they have numbers. You can go in and get all kinds of reports, and there's lots of numbers, but what do they mean? And I think there are times when you have to really be diligent about looking at the benchmarks and go, what do these mean? What is good for me? What is bad for me? And really look at it consistently. And so as the seller, you've got two different kinds of things. Or if you're a brand, you have profitability KPI, right? What are my fees? How much I'm spending on advertising? What are my returns? How are my product costs? These drive the P&L side of your business. But you also have to look at the inventory KPI. What are my days of supply? What is my sell-through rate? How old is my inventory? That's all about cash efficiency. And I think you have to really think about those things, maybe not separately, but you have to think about them both, right? Because you can be in theory, kind of profitable, but run out of cash, right? Or you can actually have on the profit side, you can be growing in revenue, but you might not be making any money. So it's really important to change that perspective to go, am I profitable? What's the calculus that gets me to profitable? And am I using my cash efficiently? Um, so you really do want to create clear thresholds for action. Um, and what those thresholds do is they allow you to triage kind of where you are. Um, and so at the very least, you can look at something and go, oh, boy, I spent a lot of advertising. I usually spend 20% on advertising this month. I spent 28. Oh, well, did sales go up or not? Right? It gives you something to focus on that you can go, how is this engine working? And are all the parts working the way they're expected? So, one of the things I think that also is important to understand is that profit varies by SKU, right? It's very easy to kind of look at your top line and assume that everything is kind of going well, but your catalog can be, even if it's 100 or if it's 1,000 or it's several thousand, all those SKUs, all those ASINs are mini profit engines. They've all got different expectations. You need to understand and make those decisions on a SKU by SKU basis. Especially when it comes to inventory decisions, right? You're making inventory decisions on very specific items. And so you're making cash decisions on how you use that. This is where, right, averages hide real issues, right? It's very easy to kind of look at that and go, hey, everything looks great. But what you have is you may have some leaders in your catalog, you may have some drains on your catalog, and it may all net out, but you want to make sure you look for the stars that maybe you can fuel the fire or the laggards that you maybe want to try and either optimize or get rid of. And so really kind of keep in the back of your mind, one of the big ideas is success in Amazon is really built SKU by SKU, right? Yes, the top level is really important, but you have to drill down SKU by SKU and make sure you're managing that appropriately. Now, it's interesting. One of the things we've noticed with a lot of sellers, right? Every seller has or brand has a chaotic life, right? There's a lot of things going on. Just looking at the different topics today, you're dealing with funding, you're dealing with images, you're dealing with listings, you're dealing with reviews. There's always something to kind of deal with. And, one of the struggles we see with a lot of brands and sellers is it's hard to stay consistent. How do you build a habit that I look at these things, right? There's so many things in our home lives and our personal lives. You go, no, I really should be doing that, but I don't have the time to do it, right? So a lot of times in this world, you have too many dashboards with no direction, right? You get this data overload. You can get tons and tons of data, but you don't know what to do with it. And I think one of the things is, how can you build a consistent routine, let's say a weekly routine, where I look at things and I go, yes, I can take an hour every Monday and look at these handful of things and go, what are the two or three things that I want to do this week? And we see this again. I see this just in my day-to-day life, right? Consistency isn't really a data problem; it's a habit problem, right? And I think that's a lot of the struggles and that's where Q1 can kind of come in, is you go, what's the habit that I'm going to build this year that will allow me to do that? So I think from an action plan perspective, really think about it, and at times, like, some of this is like pulling yourself up out of the noise a little bit, of all the chaos in your day-to-day life, and go, all right, what can I do? In the EOS world, they call it a clarity break. Do you take that hour a week to kind of step aside and go, all right, what's really driving my business? What are the things that are happening? Um, so going into Q1, I think the first thing to do is benchmark your SKUs to identify what are your profit leaks and your cash leaks. So can you pull all the data, revenue, product costs, advertising costs, FBA fees, your days of supply, pull all that together and go, how am I doing with the way my business should be running? Which ones are out of line or in line? And then I think the second is fix the high impact issues first, right? And you really do have to triage, right? It's really hard for a lot of times. You sit there and you go, I've got all these things I got to fix and I don't know where to start, right? And the very simple thing is just pick the first one off the pile, fix it, and move to the next one, right? And that's easier said than done. That takes some discipline to sit and go, I need to focus on getting one done, then the next one. Realize you don't have to solve all these problems right away, but go identify the 3 to 5 every week that you need to go look at and go, oh, all right, I'm going to look this one, I'm going to tweak that, then go to the next one. And then you'll see the impact. And then as you get more mature and you start fixing those, you can see different things. And then I think really the third step is to lock in that weekly habit. There's we use a 4D flow. We think it's detect, diagnose, decide, and direct, right? Detect, what are the KPI that are out of range? Go under that and go, well, what are the reasons? Why are my FBA fees higher than they should be? Which SKUs have higher advertising, that maybe sales hasn't rebounded? Then decide what you're going to do and then direct it, right? To make sure someone has it. If it's turning it over to a partner or an agency or a staff or a team member, and build this cycle. We talked to one of our customers and he says, me and the CEO, we meet every Monday. We pull up our KPI. We go, hey, here are the 2 or 3 things that we want to do. If you're familiar with the EOS world, entrepreneurial operating system, right? They have a weekly cadence. You have weekly called L10 meetings. You address issues, you create an action plan, and you move on. And that habit, even if it's not solving all the world's problems every Monday, right? You get in this habit of chipping away at it, and it becomes a routine. And that's where I think ultimately where that comes down to is you get profit protection. Your business will run better. You're going to identify things that were leaks that you might not have seen before. You'll find you're going to use your cash efficiently, and you become less reactive, right? You clearly be very proactive about running your business. And I think one of the things is, how do you bring that such a nice clear picture so you can kind of go, yes, these are the things that I need to focus on for the week. So I think just to wrap up, benchmarks really turn your data into action, right? You think about, you go to a doctor and they take blood work and they go, well, I got numbers, but what do the numbers mean, right? Your business is no different. Like, the numbers have to mean something. How do you measure it? Your profit and your cash clarity start at the SKU level, right? Look at it SKU by SKU. Start thinking that way. Understand which ones are driving profitability, which ones aren't. And I think really probably the biggest step is start to create that weekly habit. You'll be surprised. Like, A really simple book I've always liked was James Clear, Atomic Habits, right? And he talks about how do you just create habits, right? A lot of people, you know, say, oh, it's really hard, and they go through peaks and valleys of creating habits. And he has some really good ideas for how to do that. Like even in my own, like the simple thing of saying it's okay going to the gym and have a shorter workout than a regular workout, right? You keep building that habit, right? And you find that over time, you get better and better because you've kept the habit, even if the workout wasn't nearly as good as it should have been. And I think the same thing is true of your business. You build that habit. It's too easy to skip times or go too busy. Create the habit and make sure you're looking at these things on a consistent basis, and you'll find that your business will run smoother and things will be a lot less chaotic. So, so kind of to finish up, start Q1 with clarity. If you want to go to the link, we have our product Seller Pulse, which really helps highlight all the things. We pull the data from Seller Central, from all the Amazon APIs. We allow you to set benchmarks for your business. You can look at it by SKU, and we highlight all the SKUs that are out of range. And what's great is you don't have to look at your entire catalog. We highlight for you the ones that are out of range, and you can create a to-do list and kind of go from there. So you want to reach out to the link below or reach out to us, we'd be happy to talk to you.
Awesome, Robert. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Great. So we are pretty much 10 minutes away from wrapping up today's webinar. So we actually have some questions in here. So let's try to answer those for everybody here live. And hopefully we can give you the most value for the remaining of the webinar. So we have first question regarding the webinar. Are we going to get a replay? Magdalena, yes, you're going to get a replay by email. And then we're also going to publish this across multiple social media channels. Okay. Next one, we have Sophia asking what image generation model is the best for generating images with AI? So maybe Kamal, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can take that. So the number one image generation model by hands down is Nano Banana Pro, which is also known as Gemini 3 Pro. Right now it's down because due to the high usage, we're since this morning, like for past couple of hours, it's not working, but Google should be fixing that in next, an hour or so. But by far, Nano Banana 3 Pro is the best model to generate images.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And of course, your tool as well. Very good. Good. Awesome. So we have another question here regarding also from Sophia. We have regarding which ASIN to prioritize. So maybe Robert, you want to answer that, or maybe Pauline Blaszczyk regarding, which ASIN, I guess, product in general to give prioritization into Q1. Like if you have, let's say 20, 30, 40 products, can be sometimes struggle to figure out which one to prioritize.
Yeah. And so I think the easiest, especially if it's the first time you're doing it, is clearly look at the ones where you're losing money specifically, and you can look at that and go, why am I losing money? Am I over advertising? Are my fees too high? As you go through those, then you start looking at optimizing. So I'd say start the ones with the highest revenue that you're losing money, but then look at the highest revenue where you're losing money, and then kind of go down from there. I think that's the easiest, I think, way to kind of start. And it's interesting because that's where I talked earlier about kind of focusing on getting a few singles under your belt, as it were, right? Sit there and get a couple rather than worrying about how am I going to optimize all these. I go look at where you're losing money, then go where are the ones that I'm not making as much money, but I want to maybe try to improve, and then you get down to the optimized ones, where can I really do other things? So I would take it kind of in those 3 steps.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, I think applying the 80-20 rule, like for most of you guys, that you're going to have 20% of your SKUs are really driving 80% of the profits. So focus on those and try to not get distracted by shiny objects, Cool. Next one we have, I cannot see the name, but it's asking regarding the funding. So it's how difficult can get funding, especially with the current tariff situation. So
yeah, it's not that hard as it's supposed to be in terms of the tariffs, because we need to understand that we are the clients of those companies, and they need to have the clients to live. Regarding this tariff situation, of course, it's a little bit harder and more unpredictable, but it's also an opportunity for those who want to take the loans or other products in good conditions, because the negotiation power is bigger right now because of the uncertainty and the sentiment of on the market.
Awesome. Thank you. Next one, PPC. So they're asking, besides PPC, should we use an external traffic? I can quickly answer that. So I would say, I mean, at the end of the day, Q1 is all about focusing on what works and avoid being too experimental. So external traffic should definitely be something that's part of the mix and part of the strategy 100%. But if you're already struggling with profitability and you're really struggling to really maintain your brand afloat on Amazon, external traffic should be there to enhance your performance, not to save you from Amazon. Because if you have to come to external traffic as a strategy to rescue your brand, that means the product as a whole, it's not a good fit for Amazon. You're not competitive enough. So focus first on the foundation, your listings, your PPC, and everything. And once you think you're good enough when it comes to that, that's when our external traffic would be a good source for, you know, enhancing that extra kind of performance you can get out of Amazon. Yeah. We have, what is more important in Q1? That's a good question, Mohammed. Who wants to answer them?
I guess, I mean, it's one of those things, it depends, right? You know, and I think that's part of the element of, like, when I talked about, you know, your benchmarks, you know, where do you look into Q1, right? You know, everybody on the panel has different things depending on where your issue is, you know. So if you're not using your cash efficiency, you may mean to go raise some money, go look for different ways to fund. Your listings aren't working, go look at AI images. And so I think that's where that weekly habit of looking at that data and go, where should I focus this week, right? Because there's no end of issues you can look at, but what are the ones that make the biggest impact? And I think that's where that weekly habit of benchmarking your data and going, this week is advertising an issue or not, you know, or, you know, whatever it ends up being. So I think having that cadence really helps.
Awesome. Cool. And final one, how AMZ collaborate with your listings and account? So essentially, I mean, AMZ, the way we'll collaborate with your listings and account is that you're building this data knowledge about your consumer in terms of who is the avatar. This goes as in depth as, you know, gender, where do they live, what is their lifestyle, everything around the persona. And then you can create audiences. These audiences is essentially around how this person engages as a consumer, and this can be used on your PPC. So essentially, every single time a person looks for that keyword, you can make sure that that keyword, when it comes from your side, from an investment point of view, you only over invest if you know that that persona is matching that behavior. So it's a filter essentially, and that filter is something that we're already seeing with Google, for example, with Meta. Finally, we have it in Amazon, and we can get the most out of our ads now. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I think that's the last question. So we got quite a few. So that's good. Awesome, guys. So we before we wrap up, anything else you guys want to say? Any last words? Actually, just got a last one. Marta. What is thank you. But what's the best way to get category and market insights? Who wants to answer that? For me, if I have to give you something, Pro Opportunity Explorer. That's the best friend when it comes to that. It's from Amazon. It's free. And it gives you a lot of data. So definitely the best one. And brand analytics. Thank you, Marta. Awesome. So yeah, so I think that's everything in terms of questions. So I'd like to use the last 2 minutes, guys, to really thank you for being here. It was a pleasure to have you and to really, you know, get as much value out of you in terms of, you know, sharing with the community and really providing them with the best strategies when it comes to preparing them for Q1. So it was a pleasure. I don't know if there is any final words you guys want to say to wrap it up.
Merry Christmas.
Maybe. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, enjoy the holidays. You know, don't take too much stress. You know, the Q1.
Exactly.
You know, take some break, and I think the future is very friendly. So
yes,
yeah,
I agree.
Q1 will come. This way or another.
Yeah, 100%. So thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure for everybody that joined us live. Thank you so much once again for being here. And it's been a pleasure, and see you on the next one. Thank you for the support, guys.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Take care. Thanks, Vincenzo. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Vincenzo.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.